Six things will come to pass and be fulfilled to usher in the messianic hope in the 70th week. 70 weeks is revealed to Daniel. Number one, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity. So I've talked to a dispensationalist before, and they were like, well, there's still sin in the world. So the dispensationalist still has a literal human hermeneutic when they choose. And so they'll say that number two isn't fulfilled because there's still sin. To bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal the vision, and prophecy, to anoint the most holy. These six events are to be realized and fulfilled during the lifetime of Jesus, leading up to and finished at Calvary. This crucial time frame prohibits any other Messiah brought forth by the Jews, as the time is fully finished and only Jesus appeared at this precise time to fulfill the prophecy. So when someone is saying, so people don't realize that when they're saying the 70 week is future, that they are casting doubt onto the messiahship of Jesus Christ, or denying his messiahship, and they're doing this out of ignorance. Why? Because they're faking it, that they have some sort of understanding of what's going on. And so when someone understands the pertinence and the importance of this prophecy and what it's really talking about, then they understand that by saying this prophecy was not fulfilled, that you are casting doubt on the scriptures. Any attempt to sever the 70th week from the previous 69 and say there is a gap in between is for the purpose of denying that Jesus is the Messiah that fulfilled all of the six events to take place as predicted in the prophecy. So this author said it in a different way, but saying the same thing that I said. Therefore, dispensationalism in all of its heresy is exposed, and there are tons and tons of preachers preaching this heresy, and there's a Bible verse that says heretics will be condemned and so forth, and I think it's in Corinthians, and these same preachers will go on and on about not having I guess an example would be like people who watched a movie they shouldn't have watched, or drank a beer or something like that. But when it comes to like crucial doctrine, they're deceiving people, they're lying to people, and they don't know what they're talking about. They're faking it, and they I guess cover their ignorance in a lot of talk about like sermons about relationships and families and family counseling, and trying to just and then when you go into some of these churches, they act like they're really nice to you and so forth. And so they act like they're really nice to you, so they're just faking it. The previous 69 weeks would lead up to the Messiah, and in the 70th, a new covenant bringing in everlasting righteousness. The everlasting gospel brings... This is truth right here. The everlasting gospel brings these truths of God. See, I didn't even know these were the next words. And this happens to me a lot, where like I just see little synchronicities like that. I just wanted to say this is truth right here. And the next thing he says is the everlasting gospel brings these truths of God to all the world. The new Torah will replace the old, and all of the above six events could be preached as fulfilled when the messianic kingdom of Messiah came to its full reality. None of the six events can be fulfilled without the purpose being focused upon Jesus Messiah. All six are fulfilled in him. If fulfilled in Messiah, then they must all come to pass during the first advent of Messiah, not delayed or postponed to a future date when the church is alleged not to be here, having been secretly snatched away. So people don't seem to, they don't make the connection between the the left behind rapture scenario, and a bigger picture of what this prophecy is about, and that these items are fulfilled. These 6 events prove the validity of the New Testament and the church, and that not one of the 6 has been delayed or postponed. There is a false doctrine among the pre-tribs, mid-tribs, pre-wraths, and pan-tribs that all 6 events concern the old nation of Israel, and that they are not at all messianic, pointing to Jesus, Messiah, or the church. A lot of them, yes, they're preaching this false doctrine, but they don't even know that they got it from the dispensationalists. They just don't know any better. They're ignorant. They allege that the first 5 were fulfilled through the blood sacrifices of animals and returned the Jews from Babylon to Jerusalem. Now, right here, I kind of think that he's going and saying that they say that the first 5, they're teaching that the first 5 were fulfilled. And I don't think that's really on point, because I think that these people they're not really bringing it up. They're just kind of in ignorance, just not really, they're faking it. They're not saying the first 5 are fulfilled and giving like precise arguments. They just don't know what they're talking about. Right here he says, these teachers place a 2,000-year gap, a parenthesis, between event 5 and event 6. They are teaching that to anoint the most holy, event 6 refers to the Shekinah glory returning behind a rip-proof veil. So what he's saying here is I don't agree that there's people really teaching this, but what his point here is important. So when they're saying, I don't know if he knows about this point, but when they're saying the people, the dispensationalists, move the abomination of desolation into the future, what they're saying is that when the animal sacrifices are stopped in the future, that is an abomination, making it like an Old Testament dispensation. So, and people, they don't fully grasp the weight of what that's talking about, because they're faking it. They are teaching that to anoint the most holy, event number 6 refers to the Shekinah glory returning behind a rip-proof veil, and anointing the Holy of Holies of a new Talmudic, Kabbalistic constructed temple during their future 7 years of tribulation, that a priest or high priest, that's probably the false prophet, then commands visible fire upon the red heifer or some other sacrifice on the Temple Mount. The Trinitarians teach that the Father has returned behind a rip-proof veil, glimmering again in a brilliant light over a refound Ark of the Covenant, allegedly to be brought back from a secret hiding place in Ethiopia. The world will go mad after these miracles, but the Revelation tells the saints not to be deceived by this Antichrist delusion. So he's explaining the possible, what's most likely the Antichrist delusion that's going to take place. But I don't think the people, the Trinitarians, as he calls them, or the people, the dispensationalists, really understand what they're putting all the pieces together. They're kind of just going along with things, and I don't think they see that what they're really saying necessarily. Dispensationalism teaching perverts the anointing of the most holy from the messianic fulfillment in Jesus Christ to it being fulfilled in a new temple and renewed sacrifices. The temple does not figure in the messianic hope or promise. The temple is not the Messiah. The 6 events of Daniel are messianic and point to the Redeemer, the Messiah, the Christ, not to the nation of Israel or the temple. Otherwise, the nation of Israel and the temple would become Messiah, and Jesus Messiah was indeed a fraud. So the whole point of dispensationalism was to subvert Christianity and make it work for Jewish causes. They are teaching that the beginning with the sacrifice of red heifers to cleanse Jerusalem and the Temple Mount of the defilement of Gentiles and the blood of Messiah and Messianic believers, God returns to the Jews, and as proof descends in a flame of fire upon renewed sacrifices, as a Talmudic high priest raises his hand towards heaven and chants the secret name of God. God is alleged to accept the secret Talmudic name, the Tetragrammaton vocalized as being the lost sacred name, and he allegedly authenticates this name as divine and answers by sending fire from heaven. But read Revelation 13. God sniffs the smoke of the renewed burnt offerings, and this is supposed to be their official remarriage to the great whore of Babylon, and she is reconciled in a wedding embrace. See, people, they want to say that the whore of Babylon is the Catholic Church, which is all part of the dispensationalists. So the dispensationalists have a fraud for every major prophecy. So the great whore, instead of being Jerusalem, it becomes, they call it the Catholic Church, and this is just to deceive people. Just like all these people that are saying the Jesuits really control this and that. It's all just misinformation. And after a while, there's enough information out there, and there's no reason for people to be out there saying such nonsense, and there's preachers preaching that the Catholic Church is the whore of Babylon. So they're teaching false doctrine, and so that's almost that could be considered sin. So these same preachers are always saying that they're so righteous, but they're preaching false doctrine. But out of nowhere, two prophets come on the scene in Revelation chapter 11 and denounce this as false and of the devil. They are killed, and the world goes into a massive frenzied holiday. Dispensational teachers propose that the 2,000-year-old frown on God the Father's face turns to smiles at the presence of fresh animal blood being sprinkled before the mercy seat, as in olden times, before the church age accidentally, they claim, came and the cross and Christians temporarily into them. And dispensationalists also preach that Jesus preached works, and Paul preached saved by grace through faith, and that Jesus' teachings are for Israel during the future 70th week. They teach the new animal sacrifices are stopped by a Gentile Antichrist, the Pope, or Poop, causing God to turn and usher in wrath during the final 3.5 years of the alleged 7-year tribulation. God the Father is alleged to do this because the blood and burnt sacrifices of re-established law were stopped by the Gentile Antichrist. See, this is all just a huge deception, and the 70th week is a huge part. The future 70th week lies a huge part of the deception. So if people are preaching it, they're lending into the deception. These false teachers report this is the true completion of the 70th week, during which all Israel will be saved without need of Jesus Messiah, all owing to the need of God to expose the Pope and the Catholic Church as Antichrist, and the need to save the Jews by animal blood because he cannot get them to give up their hatred for Jesus and trust in his blood for salvation. Yes, that a lot of the dispensationalists, a lot of people, false preaching tries to say that the whole point of the Bible is to expose the Pope and the Catholic Church as Antichrist. And so the whole thrust of the Bible was just to show how bad the Catholics were and so forth. More false teaching. They are teaching that this is made possible because God the Father would not allow God the Son to nail the last 7 years of the law to the cross, that God the Father specifically withheld the last 7 years of the law dispensation off the cross so animal sacrifices could be resumed after the church is secretly raptured to save the Jews who still consider Jesus a fraud, a blasphemer. Then they claim God gets mad at the Antichrist. They say he's the Pope for stopping the renewed animal sacrifices and will put him in hell for it. Then they say the law-keeping Jews will get God's favor, and even after the take of the mark of the beast, they will be saved by transfer over to believe in Jesus the moment he appears in the heavens.